In this video, we're going to have a deeper look into the ramp profile viewer. So let's start that here. The ramp profile viewer is designed for reading and rendering ramp profile files. So those are longitudinal profiles and cross profiles, and it allows you to export those to graphical formats that you can work with in different software packages like vector design packages or CAD packages, or indeed generate animations and save those animations. Let's open our sample data set first. Okay, and that's come in here, and we're going to go and have a quick look around the graphical user interface now to understand the profile viewer and what the different elements are, because it's quite a busy graphical user interface. So firstly, in this panel we have the longitudinal profile, and in this panel we have the cross profiles. Here we have an overview map that shows me planimetrically, I guess, or horizontally in real world space, where the different offset lines are and what point I'm currently looking at. Over here we have the value fields. This lists all the different value fields that are in the profile. And on this side we have the offset, so that lists all of the different offset lines that have been included in this profile file. Up the top here we have the main controls. These are the file functions, so these allow you to open, save settings, copy some of the displays, export the data to different vector formats, and indeed generate animations or movies from the profiles that you've created. These are the playback functions, so these allow you to generate the animations or step through the profile at small increments, at small steps, and with a given temporal frequency as well. So this is all about controlling the animation or the playback. The other fields here are to control the distance and values and bounds of the field. So this controls the distances along the profile and sets some information about what window you're looking at, what units they're in, how many decimal places to use. And this controls the values. So in this case, this is the y-axis and what units they are in and what bounds are displayed there. This is the go-to button that allows you to go to a specific point or location along the longitudinal profile. And in all cases, the longitudinal profiles, cross profiles, and the overview map are synchronized. So let's go ahead now and start setting some of this up. So along the x-axis in the longitudinal profile, I have my distances. Now I know that these are in kilometers, so I'll specify those as kilometers, and I probably only really need, 3 decimal places is enough. This by default has set the full bounds of the distances in the longitudinal, so it goes from distance of 0 to 15.542. I can change that, and let's just have a look at, say, distances 0 to 12, for example. The values here I know are in meters. This is the y-axis in both the longitudinal and in the cross profile, and I know that these are in meters. It gives again the value range that we're looking at here. Let's take out here, let's start at, say, negative 150. Sorry, that's wrong. Start here at negative 250 to negative 87471. So this is the minimum bound. I could go deeper. Let's go to negative 500. So this is a way that we can, by controlling these bounds, we can sort of zoom in and look at certain areas of interest. I can then also go to a particular location. So let's go to kilometer post number 6. And my flag moves to kilometer post number 6, and you'll notice that this now also, the cross profile, has moved to the kilometer 6 position as well. You'll also note that in all cases I can also set the distances and decimal places in the cross profile and the overview map as well. So let's do that. I know that my offsets are given in meters. I probably don't need to display them in 3 decimal places, so we'll just use 2 decimal places. And the bounds are shown there. So they go from negative 1000 offset to positive 1000 meter offset. And again, the values have, in this case, have been inherited from what I set up here in the top control. Similarly, with the coordinates, I know that these are projected coordinates and they're in meters. So again, I don't really need to have 3 decimal places, so we'll just move them to 1 decimal place. In the case that my coordinates were geographical, I can also specify here a ellipsoid from which they are based. But I don't need to do that because they're projected coordinates. Let's look at the offsets now. So in my profile file, I have my center line, which is offset 0, and that is active, the active offset by default. The active offset is set by this radio or option button, and then the checkbox defines all of the other offsets that are available in the profile, and I can make those visible. So for example, let's leave 0 as the active offset, but let's also apply and show in the longitudinal display offset at negative 1000 meters. And you'll notice it's come in here as dotted lines. It's a bit hard to see, so I'm going to go back to the full extent. Yeah, you can see here that there are some dotted lines. Let's zoom in. We'll look at some of these controls a bit later, but let's zoom into this area and it's a bit clearer. So negative 1000 now is shown as this dotted line because negative 1000 is behind the active offset. Let's also add the positive 1000 offset in here, and that's come in as a dashed line because it is in front of the current active offset. I can also change the active offset, so let's just clear all visibilities except the active one, and now let's make the negative 1000 the active offset and turn off the visibility of the central offset or offset 0. So now we're looking at the profile at the negative 1000 offset. Let's go back to 0 and leave the negative 1000 and plus 1000 lines on. I can change the line style of the lines that are shown behind. So the behind line is the negative 1000 line. Let's go and click on here, and it will ask me, how do you want to display it? So I might say, okay, let's make this a dash dot line. So now that's displayed as a dash dot line. And the one in front I want to display as a solid line, for example, or a dotted line. So this is just to help you visualize kind of, if you're displaying multiple offsets at the same time, which one is kind of in front and which one is behind. It's not entirely effective, it's still very difficult to read, but that's what that's about. Okay, let's go back to the full extents of the data set now. And let's look at the fun stuff. So let's look at how we can control how the value fields are displayed. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's firstly look at what these checkboxes do. So this toggles the visibility of a particular value field. So I can turn off the seabed completely, for example. And you'll notice that's changing here and also in the cross profile. But probably more reasonably, let's take out R1 and R1A. And now I'm only showing the seabed, R2, R3, and the R3 cap. And similarly, my labels have also updated there. So this controls the visibility, and this controls the labeling. So if I don't want to label the seabed, I can turn off the label and it no longer labels the seabed in my profile. I can also change what this is called. So I'm going to make this seabed here lowercase, and we're going to call this one, we're going to not label R1, and we're not going to label R1A. We'll label here top of R2, so we'll call this one top R2, top R3, and we will call this, what we'll do is we won't label the R3 cap. Let's just call it R3 cap, but we'll turn the label off. Okay, so that's how I can change the labeling in my profile. I can also change the font. So let's make the seabed bold oblique, and let's change its color to blue. So now I have the seabed marked here as bold oblique. Let's also now look at what some of these other things do. So this controls here the color of the seabed line. So let's make that a deeper blue color, like that. And let's make it thicker, so line style 2. Okay. Let's also look quickly at what these things do here. So this changes the general colors in the map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my background color to black now, and going to change my foreground color to white. The foreground color is basically all the labels and different things like that. And you'll see that the value fields control has been updated and all of the other displays have been updated. Let's go with black for the time being. And now let's look at how we can change the color fill. So this basically extrudes the seabed to one of the other values in there. So let's extrude the seabed to the top of the R2 horizon. Okay, so now it's color filled from the seabed to the R2 horizon in this particular color. I don't like that color. I'm going to make it like a light sort of yellow, and now I have this light yellow color coming in here. This controls the transparency. So let's make that 50% transparent. Okay, now that is 50% transparent. So similar, I can do the same things with some of the other profiles, the value fields in the profile here. I can extrude them to different things. So let's just change our color back to white and black. And we're going to make this one back to solid, so it's back to 0. And I think we're going to maybe have the seabed a little bit of a lighter blue there, but still a nice solid blue color. I'm going to go through and I'm going to start extruding some of these things as well. So R1 I'm going to extrude up to the seabed. So that's here. Let's zoom in and have a look at that. So before I did it, this was my R1 horizon here. Yep, and I want to extrude it from there up towards the seabed. And now it's color filled that. Let's give it a nicer color. Something like that. Sorry, that should be the color fill, something like that. In there, make this a bit of a stronger color. Okay, go back. So that was my R1. Now I'm going to extrude R1A to the top of R2. And there I have it. So that is R2. And let's fix some of these colors. We'll do that a little bit later. I'm going to take the top of R2 and I'm going to extrude it to R3. And there I have the result there. And similarly, I'm going to take the top of R3 and there is nothing below that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to extrude it to the base, so to the bottom. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the order. This cap actually, I'm going to move it up so I can select this value field layer and choose the up arrow, and it's going to promote the cap above the R3. So let's do something with the cap here. Let's now extrude the cap from the R3 cap to the top of R3, and now that's drawn that there. Okay, let's change some of these colors. So now I've changed some of these colors, and the other thing I can do now is I can also define how these packages or units are rendered. So for example, let's go from top of R2 to top of R3, which is this one, And what we're going to do is we're going to label a value in here, and we're going to call this unit 3. And I'm going to change the font. I'm going to make this oblique. It's now called unit 3. I'm going to change the color of that font. Let's make it this deeper color here. Unit 3 is now displayed like that. And I might actually say, well, let's make top of R2 smaller. So let's use a smaller font. Let's make it oblique. And now that's shown there. Let's label the top of R3 similarly. So we're going to make it oblique or italic, smaller font. There it is. And we're going to call this the carbonate mound. And we are going to also make this oblique. So when I go over here now, the carbonate mound is labeled inside that bold rather than displaying at the top. So let's make this a little bit smaller. I think let's do font size 7. Let's give it a browny orangey color. There we go, carbonate mound. So you can see I can very quickly convert what was some pretty boring lines into something that now looks a little bit more interesting and a little bit easier to read. If I'm happy with this, if I click save, it is now going to save the settings that I've applied. So the next time that you open this example profile, it has everything that you configured in here ready to go. You don't have to start from scratch again. So let's save that, and it saves those settings for us to come back to. Let's have a look at some of the other controls up here in the longitudinal display. So the first of these that you've seen me use are the windowed zoom. So if I click on that, I can zoom in on a particular area, and it changes the bounding extents up here, and we can zoom in and have a look at something. If I click on this fit to full extents, it takes me back to the full extents of my data set and resets those bounds. Measure tool, so let's have a look at that. I can measure distances in here. And it's given me the distances and shown them down here. It shows me that my distance along the profile was 4.83 kilometers. The change in value was 57.905, so that's from that point to that point. And therefore, the three-dimensional distance is 4.832 kilometers. That's the total length of that line. So that's distance measuring. And I can go back to my pointer tool, and my pointer tool is back in here now. This one you might have seen me use allows me to set the current position. So I click in here, or I click over here, and I've set the current position of the flag and also progressed the cross profile to that location. So that's the interactive way of doing the same thing as setting the go-to value here. And this allows me to copy the longitudinal profile to my clipboard. So if I do that, copy to clipboard. If I go to something like Paint, I can now paste it in there. So here I am in Paint, paste, and now I have very easily my longitudinal profile that I can just paste into an image editor or a PowerPoint or indeed a Word document or something that I'm working on. So that's a useful way of copying whatever you've set up in the graphics there. You'll notice that some of these tools are fairly similar in the other displays. We'll have a look at those in a little bit. But the other things I want to mention are this toggleable button. The first one is Show Flag. So if I turn that off, you'll notice now my flag is not shown, even though I do have an active distance along, and the labels are displayed on the left-hand side or wherever they occur. So that allows me to toggle on and off the flag display. And this toggles on and off the crosshairs. So I find it useful to have my crosshairs shown as I'm moving my mouse around. But if I take that off, you'll notice that I no longer have my crosshairs shown. I like having crosshairs, some people don't. So I've made it optional so you can turn them on and off. This is another toggleable option, and it allows you to always recenter the profile. So let me just choose to go over here 2.397 kilometers. If I turn this on, it's going to center the profile on 2.397 kilometers. So everywhere that I move, it will recenter the profile. Okay, so some of these tools are similar in the other displays as well. So you'll notice that in my cross profile, I have also the ability to turn on and off crosshairs. I can turn on and off the flags. I can fit extents. I can zoom in. I can also measure. And I can also copy it to the clipboard so I can use it in other things. Now, the centering option in this case recenters the image vertically, but we'll come back and have a look at that in a second as to how that works, because you need to define which particular value field you want to always recenter. Okay, let's have a look at the map, and again, the map has a similar thing. You can toggle the flag on and off, you can toggle crosshairs, you can tell it to always recenter your active position. So if I was to change that now, you'll notice that this is recentering. And again, I can fit to full extent, zoom into a particular area, and do measurements, and that sort of thing. So very similar, and copy the map, for example. Okay, let's look at now the properties for each of these. So for the longitudinal profile, I have a property over here. If I open it up, it allows me to control how certain things in the longitudinal profile are displayed. So for example, I can choose how to display, or how frequently I want to display the distances along the profile. So at the moment they're displayed at 1 kilometer increments. I might change that to 0.5. And similarly, I can change the start values. They're 30 apart. Let's make those 20 apart. And you'll see when I click OK, it's now changed my grids. I can also say, look, I don't really want to show the horizontal grids or the vertical grids, and it turns them off. So you have all this control. You can define how you draw the grids, what line style they have, what color they are. Similarly, the axes labels, you can choose not to label the axes. You can choose what font they are, what color they are. And again, the same with the marker flag. The marker flag is yellow. It is 50% transparent. The marker line width down here is 3. So I could choose, for example, not to have that at all. Oh, no, I can't. It's set so that 1 is the smallest value. And then if I'm happy with some of these settings, I can actually propagate them to the other displays. So let me just do, for example, let's change the marker flag color to a red. Yep, and click OK. So now my marker flag here is red. But similarly, if I had said, okay, you know what, take all these and now apply whatever common settings are in the longitudinal profiles, also apply them to the other displays, so the cross profile and the overview map. Let's do that. Okay, now they also have red flags. I'm not a big fan of red flags, so let's just change it back to yellow. And let's propagate all those settings. Okay, good. You'll notice as well it's also changed the size of the text here. So we'll look when we come to the properties of these. We'll come back to that. So that is the options you have for the longitudinal profile. Let's have a look at the options for the cross profile. You'll see you have many more options in here. Generally, you can do something called looking forward. We'll come back to that one in a second and see what that means when we go into animation. But what I wanted to point out was the vertical recentering. So I have a toggle option here for recentering. If I click it, you'll notice that now my seabed level is at the center of the display. It's here in the cross profile settings where I set what value field to center on. So I might choose, say, R3. And you'll notice now that the R3 value is at the center. Okay, so it's back to normal. What other options do I have in here? Axes and markers, very similar. How often do I want to draw the grids and the axes labels? What color do I want to do the flags? That sort of thing. There's a future option that will be available in here where I can draw a reference circle. So this is useful when you're, say, pipeline profiling, to draw the reference circle at, say, offset 0, so you can see the physical size of a pipeline, for example, in cross-profile view. That's not implemented yet, but we'll be implementing it soon. And again, I can propagate to the longitudinal profiles and the map overviews anything that I've made in terms of the general settings. So we're going to come back to having a look at what this forward-looking does a little bit later. Let's go through now to the properties for the overview map. And again, this looks pretty similar. I don't really like my spacings here, so let's change that to 5,000. I think the label is way too big, so let's take that back to 8 and click OK. That's a lot more usable now and visible, and I can see things going bad. In fact, that font is a bit too big still, I think, so let's make that 7. Okay, and the same with that, that's too big too. Okay, so those briefly were the properties. Let's go and look at the animation controls now. So I'm going to go back to the start. So back to start. This is kind of like a video control here. I can go back to the start of the profile. I can step through the profile, and it steps at whatever setting I have here. So I'm stepping at the moment at 1 kilometer. Step forward, step back. Step to the end, step back to the beginning. If I click play, it's now going to step 1 kilometer along the pipeline, and it's going to step every 0.1 seconds. So this is going to be very fast animation. Bang, 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 bang. And you can see all of the displays changing. That's too fast, really. So let's just say, hey, look, don't step every 1 kilometer, step every 100 meters, and do that. And now that's a lot more fluid kind of animation that you can see happening there. It's probably a bit too much still, so let's go to 0.05. Whoops. And let's slow this down a little bit so that we're now updating at every 0.05 seconds. Okay, so it's faster, which means I can probably reduce my step a little bit. Okay, and I have like a smoother display happening now, although it's a little bit slow. So let's go, there we go. So this is a much smoother way of displaying the profile as it's moving. Let's play around with some of these things like recenter. If I turn recenter on, you'll see that the profile is now always recentering on the center of the longitudinal display. Let's do the same thing. Let's choose centering for the seabed, and you'll notice that the seabed is always recentering. Again, I'm not a huge fan of that, so we'll turn that off. The same with this. The map is also recentering. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of this recentering here, so I'm going to turn that off, go to the full extents again. Now let's look at that fadeaway option. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off everything except the seabed. And I'm not going to fill it. So we just got the bare seabed here. And I will choose recentering now. I'm going to recenter the seabed in here. Let's just run through and see what happens when I do that. Okay, let's move up to the point where the seabed starts to rise towards the top of this mound. Let's go zoom in on this area here a little bit. And let's take the top value to -50. Okay, let's run this animation. It's pretty fast. Let's slow it down a bit. probably too slow. Let's then just decrease the step. It's a bit more reasonable. All right, let's have a look at what this look forward option is. You'll notice, let's just move a little bit. Okay, you'll notice here now that the seabed is drawing multiple lines. That's because we have this look forward setting turned on. Let's change it to 0 and see what happens. Okay, now it's only displaying the cross profile at 13.653 kilometers. And if I go forward, it's only displaying one profile line. What can sometimes be useful is to look forward. So let's look forward and say, look, I want you to look 0.25 kilometers ahead. And you'll see it's now showing all of the cross profiles that are within a window of 0.25 kilometers from the current location distance, which is 13.591 kilometers. That can look a little bit ugly. Let's just play it. Yeah, it can look a little bit ugly. It kind of gives you an idea of how things might be changing, but it really doesn't help you any more than that. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, you know what, to make it a little bit easier to read, let's fade away. So what fade away does is it displays the closer lines with the same color as the seabed and slowly changes their transparency so that by the time you're looking at the furthest cross profile that's 0.25 kilometers away, it's nearly invisible, it's transparent. So that's what the fadeaway function does. It can be useful for kind of visualizing what's coming up ahead in the terrain, but it's up to you whether you want to use that option or not. There it is again. Okay, let's go have a look at some of the export options that we have first. Let's go and reset our profile here. We'll turn that off. We'll reset this as well. We're going to turn back all the other units on. We're going to set this one back to R2. Okay, here's my profile. Now, I might want to, we looked at how we can copy an individual profile so we can paste it into a PowerPoint or something like that. There's an option up here to copy as well, but what that does is it copies all of the current displays. So let's just have a look at what that does. Copy current displays to clipboard. Copy. And paste. Okay, so what you'll see is that it has copied all of the displays kind of using the current layout of the graphical user interface, but it's removed all the annoying controls and things like that. So you have all three of the main graphical displays together. I should mention at this point that you can change the titles here. So I might say longitudinal profile example for ramp tutorial. And I'll call my cross profile, this is a cross profile. Okay, now if I copy that, let's have a look what it looks like now. So I'm just going to open Paint and paste, and you'll see that, of course, the titles come through as well. Okay, so that's copy all, or copy all the current displays. We talked about save already. Let's look at export to vector formats. So this allows me to export the displays into two different types of vector formats. The first is a scalable vector graphic, and the second is a CAD file format. So this is the AutoCAD DXF file format. So let's have a look at the options in here. Let's try and export the, let's try to export to scalable vector graphics first. So it wants me to choose a base folder, so I'll use my sample data folder profiling, and it says, hey, give me a base name. So let's do example profile. And what it's going to do is it's going to export either the current position or all of the steps. So it can go through and it will generate SVG files for you at every single step. We're not going to do that because it could take forever. But what we are going to do is choose to just export the current position or the current step. And then it asks you, well, what do you want to export? So I'm going to choose to export the longitudinal, cross profile, and the overview map. Actually, I won't export the overview map, but I will export the longitudinal profile and the cross profile. You'll see how it's going to name these files. It's going to write them to this folder. It's going to call them example profile. It's going to then append to that the distance along the profile, the current offset, and then whether it's a longitudinal, cross, or map profile, and then the file extension. In our case, it's SVG. This allows me to change the size of the output vectors. So if I wanted to rescale these to a specific width and height, I can do that. Let's leave them as they are now, and let's see what happens. So it's done, it's exported them. Let's go have a look at those files. So you'll see it's created an SVG file for position 5.816 along the profile, and it's given me the cross profile and the longitudinal profile. Let's go open the longitudinal profile in Inkscape, which is a scalable vector graphics editing program, and see what it looks like. Okay, so it's generated this scalable vector graphics file. The great thing about this is I can now ungroup it, and I can start to play around with individual elements in here. So, you know what? I don't like this color. Let's change the color. Bang. And it's changed to whatever I've set it to. I want to do some callouts. So let's just say, this is interesting. And we'll put a line in there and point to something. So it gives me now full graphical control of all of the graphics in this particular profile. So this is great when you really want to take the basic profile that you've generated in the ramp profile viewer and really start to massage it to become a really quality graphical product that you can include in papers or in PowerPoint presentations and that sort of thing. Let's look at the DXF option now. So I'm going to look at the DXF option, and it's asking me how I want to scale the graphics, because inherently I have some vertical exaggeration in my profile. So here I can change the, so let's go ahead and export the DXF and see what happens. So let me try that again. Okay, done. And let's open the DXF file and see what it looks like. So again, it's generated the DXF file using the colorings and the preferences that we've defined before, and it's also put these on different levels. So the fill is on one level, the lines are on one level, labels, etc. And again, it allows you to go through and edit this as you need to. And the last thing I want to look at is how to export the animations to a movie. So let's just go back to the start here, and let's say that we're going to increment every 0.5, and we're going to change the step and the speed, and let's make this 0.25 kilometers. Okay, let's go back to the beginning, and now let's choose the make a movie option. So with this option, I have a number of two different ways of doing it. One, I can actually export every step to separate PNG files, or I can choose to generate an animated GIF. So let's do that. We're going to call this example profile.gif. Okay, let's go export that and see what happens. And let's have a look at the file that it's created. Here it is. If I open that, you'll see all the steps that I've just exported now in an animated GIF file. So the two last things I want to talk about are the option here to import the settings from another profile file. So let's go ahead and look at what that does. So for example, if I generated a profile that was, say, offset to this one, using maybe the same data sets, the same sort of value ranges and this sort of thing, I can actually choose to import the settings of that profile into this one, so I don't have to set up everything manually. So that's what that does, imports the settings from a different profile into the current profile that you've got open. The last thing I want to mention is the use of events. This is functionality that's not yet implemented. The intention is that you will be able to import spatial sort of XY data into here and have those display as events along the profile, both longitudinally cross profile and also in the map view as they come up and as they happen. But this is functionality that's yet to be implemented, so stay tuned for advancements in that area. So this has been quite a long introduction into the profile viewer, and we've gone into most of the functionality in it and all the different options. So I hope the video has been useful. Thanks for watching.